Rice wine.
What have we learned?
And a bigger question, what are we going to do next? Since we put out the video on rice wine, which if you haven't seen it, there's a link right here. You should go watch it before you watch this, because this won't make much sense if you don't. Lots and lots of people have told us a lot of things. Some of it not really jiving well with other advices. So we weren't sure which way to go. We looked it up. We found out a lot more stuff. And it basically turned into, we learned just how much we didn't know. And we keep learning more and more and more as this goes. Apparently there's 2 different kinds of bacteria, and we have the second kind, not the typical kind, okay?
So some of the things that we did learn, as we were told that we used the wrong kind of yeast, we should have used the Chinese rice balls versus the rice leavening that we used. But the rice leavening is basically Chinese rice balls ground into a powder. So it's the same thing, just not in ball form.
Mostly, but don't the balls have yeast in them? That was the difference. The balls have yeast, whereas the rice leaven did not actually have yeast in it, which I thought was interesting.
The directions on the rice leaven, regardless of what brand it is, all say the same thing, that what we're doing is making rice wine.
Yeah, we followed exactly what they said to do.
They don't tell you to add yeast.
Right.
But in the ingredients, it just says that it has rice flour and
the bacteria, I forget the name of the bacteria. It doesn't matter. There's 2 different bacteria.
The words will probably come here.
Yeah, I'll put them here. Now, the rice flour makes me curious.
Are they using that as a wild yeast inoculation?
Or are they expecting wild yeast to form in here? We don't actually know. So we put some thought into this and said, all right, let's figure out what to do. This is about a week old now, okay? I see some liquid in the bottom. I see it separating a bit.
We have bubble activity.
Yeah, it is actually bubbling a little bit. So
the separation, they said that's completely normal, and that's because it's producing alcohol.
Right.
So
essentially what's happening is it's converting the starches, and the yeast, or whatever it is consuming those sugars and making alcohol at the same time. So it's a dual type of thing. Now, it's possible this is almost done. Maybe that's why it's so slow. Maybe that's why we're seeing the liquid. We don't know. We have not opened this up yet. We have not smelled it, tasted it, anything. So the first thing we want to see is, did this make alcohol, or did this just make sugary rice juice? So I'm thinking, let's find out. A lot of threads on these fermenters. Okay, I'm just going to set that there. I'm going to give a smell. It doesn't smell rotten or moldy. It smells like alcohol. That's a key thing. By the way, check this out for the rice wine.
Those were handmade by my uncle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, this is tricky because I don't want to get rice. So I'm just going to kind of go down the side where I see a lot of liquid here. Oh, wow. There's a lot of liquid in here. The easiest way to do this is to stick a strainer down into that rice, and that clears a little bit of area so that I can just suck this up. That's been sanitized in
the red bucket of sanitization!
All right, so I got a tiny amount here. I mean, it's like probably half a mouthful for each of us, but it's enough to know if there's alcohol in this and see what it tastes like. As I said, on the smell, I actually smell alcohol.
His poker face is lacking today, which gives me hope. It smells like alcohol.
Mm-hmm. It does not taste anything like what I thought rice wine was going to taste like. That is incredibly flavorful and like herbaceous and fruity.
And fruity.
I mean, I would swear it was like something infused with fruit.
It's like rice and sangria. Rice wine and sangria together.
Yeah. It's okay. I can't explain it, but I definitely taste alcohol in there. There is alcohol formed in here, which means something fermented this.
So what I'm thinking this mass would be what is known as a koji.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a rice that has started its molecular transformation. I'm making words up
Yeah,
now.
she is.
Um,
That's a
where
good one.
The starches in the rice are being transferred into sugar, and then the yeast that is obviously present in here is transferring those sugars into alcohol.
I'm curious where the yeast came from, though, because we boiled the rice, therefore, or steamed the rice, so it obviously went past temperatures that yeast can withstand. So it must have come from the rice flour or wild yeast. Now, I didn't think that we'd get much wild yeast with this lid on there, which someone said that. So our thinking today was we have a multi-pronged strategy. We're going to taste it, find out what it is. If there's no alcohol, okay, no fermentation's happening because there's not enough yeast. We were going to add yeast, but I've never heard of anyone doing that with rice wine. So I really didn't want to do that, but I thought if you have to, you have to. But there's obviously alcohol here. It's obviously fermenting, and it's making something really amazing.
Yeah, it's super yummy, and I didn't expect
it's
to
very
say
sweet
that
right now because it's still fermenting
at this stage.
Let me put this back on while we talk.
Now, I don't know if we mentioned it, but we did do a rice wine.
Yeah, I mentioned it.
Years back.
The bad way.
And it was before we did much research, and we're just like, sure, it's rice. You just
I cooked rice,
make a wine.
Put the water and rice in there, added sugar, and made rice wine.
And it had
actually it's over here.
Sake-like essence to it, but this is way better. And I think what is making this so nice, shockingly enough, is the rice.
Yeah,
because
different rice.
This is the correct rice, the sweet sticky rice. So it has the short grain structure and the high starch content that's being transferred into sugars to make a delicious, flavorful
this is incredibly
beverage.
Flavorful. I did not expect it. So here's the rice wine that I made. This is from 2018. So this is from March of 2018. It's 2.5 years old. It does not smell the same. And does not taste the same. Obviously, there's some alcohol in here. I estimated at about 11 to 12%. It tastes sour. It doesn't taste finished. It tastes almost vinegary. Yeah. It's not very good. I see the hints of the flavors here.
Yeah. The citrus fruity notes that I was getting in this, I do get
this
in
is
that.
Harsh, though. This is sweet and just mellow and nice right off the bat. I'm not even going to finish what's left in that cup. I'll just put this back.
So yeah, the rice definitely makes a difference, obviously. And
it's already showing positive pressure again, which means this is fermenting.
Yeah. So
and a lot of people have been telling us, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. You're doing that wrong." And my only comeback was, "But it's fermenting."
And I was very confused by why a lot of people were telling us that we were doing it wrong when the actual packet that we purchased has directions right on the website.
Oh, I think there's a lot of reasons. And I think some of it is because we put the name sake into it. Sake. I know that's the correct way. I'm going to say it's sake because it's habit and that's just how I grew up. I mean no disrespect. I've also learned a few other things. For instance, the word sake does not mean rice wine. It means liquor. So if you go to Japan and you order sake, they might say what kind. And they don't mean what kind of rice wine. They mean, do you want whiskey? Do you want vodka? Do you want rice wine? So we're all saying it wrong. We're all using it wrong. So let's just get that out in the open right there. But sake has so many different ways of being made, and there's different levels. They polish the rice and all this kind of stuff. We made a basic rice wine, okay? There's a lot of ways you can make it more complex and complicated. We wanted to just start with something simple to make rice wine and have a nice, traditional, authentic styled method to make rice wine. And it seems like we did exactly that.
So if we knew the actual origin of this particular rice, whether it be China, Korea, Thailand, I don't know.
California. No, it's an actual Chinese rice. It came from China.
Then through that we could give this a better exact name, because rice wine is just a general category and each region
has a name. And each
Orient
method has a name.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways this could go. We tried to generalize the methods that we found to come up with one that seems to work, that we can use our modern-ish vessels and things like that for. The one thing that a lot of people said, and I'd have to agree, is the airlock. They were saying that it's normally an open fermentation or they just put cheesecloth over it. And when someone told me that, I went, oh. Once I realized there's no actual yeast, that made me think we might have a problem here. But it does not seem like we do. I'm watching that still.
Yeah.
Positive pressure is happening. So what I'd really like to do at this point is add more rice, because right now we don't have a whole lot of liquid in there at all.
And that was one of the things that you, the viewer, told us, is that we didn't use enough rice, that I can completely 100% agree
Absolutely. We totally didn't. Because I didn't know, like, oh, how much should we use? Because we'd never done it before. So I had no system of measurement to work that out. So we made 3 cups of rice to make this much. I made another 3 cups of rice that's cooling right now. That should double it up to about there. I'm okay with that.
And if my assessment is correct that this is now a koji, then adding more rice is all we need to do and just let it do its thing.
What she means by that is, if this really is a koji and has that living bacteria in it, that bacteria will now go to work on the new rice, converting its starches into sugars, and then the yeast already present is going to convert that into alcohol and CO2, making more rice wine that should taste a lot like the one that we currently have. Now, something of interest too, it separates at some point, and you start seeing it almost falling apart.
Yeah, you can see it right here.
And the liquid is very, very clear. Like, it's incredibly clear. So I'm thinking that's the way the wine is going to be. If this tastes anything like what we did there, I may just start specializing in rice wine. We might become the City Steading rice and mead channel. Because it was really that good.
In some of our research, didn't they say that home brewers that made rice wine typically drank it young?
Yeah.
After
they let it clear, so it might be 2 months.
After that taste, I can totally see why.
This is a week old.
That was wonderful. Yep. And wow, I'm sold.
So let's get to putting more rice in here. Make more rice wine. Okay, so we made 3 more cups of that rice. Same method, letting it cool, and now we're going to put it in here. Someone suggested putting it on parchment paper. That was a really good idea. So one thing I hope you guys understand here is that we didn't go into this saying, we know how to do this and it's all good. We went into this going, this is very strange and unusual for us. So I'm taking tips from everyone. The problem is when those tips don't coincide and one person says one thing and another person says another, and I go and look it up and I actually find proof of both sides, it makes me go, well, which is right? So that makes me go, well, outcome is what we need, right? The outcome is it should produce alcohol. We didn't know until today. It's producing alcohol.
And that's why we took what the manufacturer was recommending to heart, because why would they tell you to do it wrong?
Right.
And since our procedure followed the manufacturer's directions, more or less, other than the airlock.
As well as we saw several incidents of people making it this method. Using the exact method we did, made rice wine. I can't see all of them lying or making it up or being wrong. So that led me to even further look into it and find that this very simple method is actually rice wine. And I think what confuses things is when you start adding the word sake into things. Now it changes it. Now it's something a little bit different, even though it's still at its heart rice wine, made a little differently. And somebody actually mentioned barley and hops, George. He made his own koji, is the only real difference. We're already there. This is what we had in a packet. He made that on his own and then let it ferment. That's the main difference. Now, he added a lot more water, and I think that's sort of not accurate to do from what people have told me, because the mold actually doesn't like water, so it doesn't want to be underwater. So even the little bit that we added might have been too much, but it seems to have worked okay. That's why this rice, I'm not going to add more liquid. We're just going to put the rice right in there.
Some people use the same method, but they created a little crater, like they scooped the rice out so that the liquid could collect there.
Just hold it sideways like that for me.
We've seen, as other people have indicated, the rice starting to separate and create its own little liquid layer, so we weren't really concerned that much. I think it's going to create a little floaty raft of rice so that it can make its liquid and continue converting the starches to sugars all on its own.
And the rice is supposed to break down too, like into bits, smaller pieces and everything, which makes sense because what is the rice made up of? Starch, right? So as that gets transformed and consumed, well, matter is neither created nor destroyed. So it's
going to lose structure.
Turns into something else. In this case, it turns into really yummy rice wine. I could probably have put 5 cups or 6 cups in here. But we decided to start small, and we can always, do this again and build on it, and maybe even perfect a method and come up with better ways. And there's always something to learn, and that's what we love about this hobby. Is that just when you think you know everything, you learn how much you didn't know. But that taste is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so hard to describe it other than a fruit wine. That's what it tastes like. But it's herbaceous too. It's got an aroma that is unusual. And then the flavors are just, it's really cool. Now, I'm not a big sake drinker to begin with. Not a huge fan of it. To me, this didn't taste like sake. I've had, like, her brother likes sake.
This tasted more like a really good herbal tea.
I can't put that in there.
Mixed with
sake.
Sake.
Herbal tea. That was it.
All right, we're ready to put the lid back on. You want to mix this up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this spoon has been sanitized. That one has not.
That's why I'm eating the rice off it. All right.
So when you eat the rice by itself, are you getting any of those notes?
Nope.
You
none.
got you got a little.
Got a little on me. It tasted like rice.
Okay.
It tastes like really good rice. I want to get more of this stuff because I like it. Now, I'm mixing this up. This may or may not be a mistake. I don't know. But I cannot justify leaving the rice just sitting in there without either adding more of the rice leaven, which I know I don't need to do. That was another thing. That bag of rice leaven that we used, the whole thing, is meant to do 3 to 4 kilograms of rice.
Yeah.
We did like under a kilogram. So I know it can do more, which means it can do everything that I just put in here and then some. So I didn't want to add any more of that to this. So I thought, let's just mix it up because that way everything gets in there and it's all good. My only fear is that there's a lot of liquid here now, which is the alcohol. Does that mean that the leaven does that mean that the bacteria can't convert? I don't really know. But I did see some people add a significant amount of water to it and it still worked. So, I mean, they had more water than rice and it still worked. So I don't really know what it's going to do. I'd also like to correct a statement that I made in the last video where I said I didn't believe it could get as high of an ABV as some people were claiming. After hearing more about the way this works, it's sort of a built-in step feed.
It's like a concentrate.
Yeah, because you're not adding water. A lot of time when we brew, we add water to it, right? So that would dilute automatically. But if you think about it, this doesn't have much water added. It's the liquid in the rice, which is water, right? But there's not a tremendous amount there. As this starts to convert the starches to sugars, it's converting that to ethanol, which could, in theory, give whatever yeast is doing the conversion a little bit of a boost, and it could do more than you think it should be able to. Now, I also found out that most sake and things like that are about 20%. They don't really go much above 20%. So that means they're following the typical rules of wine yeast. A strong wine yeast, don't get me wrong, 20% is pretty strong. But it's not 25, 30. I mean, somebody told me that sake's 40%, and I was like, no, it's just not. There was some questions on distillation of it, and various peoples do various things with distillation. That's beyond the scope of what this video is about. So I didn't even really do a lot of research on that. We're really talking about the fermented product here. You want it stronger? Drink 2 glasses. Okay. So that is the basic update of our rice wine and where it's at now. If you like this video, we have about 300 videos on our channel on how to make wine, cider, mead, and beer.
And rice wine. Thank you for liking and subscribing.
And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.